Today's talk is going to be from the headaches that we usually get. And the topic is, we have to lose certain things in our lives. And not just certain things, but some people in our lives. So we have certain things that we must be able to lose in order to accelerate, because some of us are not accelerating and we are not experiencing the progress that we want to experience because we are stuck or certain things are holding us back. So we must be able to lose certain things, okay? We must be able to lose certain people. And for those that are not takers, I say that some of the headaches that we are experiencing are because of some people in our lives. Actually, not some, but most of the headaches that we experience are because of some people in our lives. And I'm not going I remember I got this when I was reading that scripture in Genesis 13. It was talking about Lot and Abraham. Do you remember the story of Abraham and Lot? How God tells him that, you know what, go from this land, go from your kins, from your folks, from your family, and go where I will show you. God didn't tell him where he was taking him, but he told him that go where I will show you. And he was planning a blessing for him. He was planning flourishing and thriving and all that. But this is what Abraham did. Actually, it was not Abraham, it was Abram. So here he was, before he became Abraham, he was Abram. So Abram takes Lot with him. And for those of us that have read that passage, there arose a lot of battles between the servants of both ends. The servants of Lot and the servants of Abram. Like who was getting a lot more water, whose animals were feeding what kind of plot belonged to who, what kind of fertile ground belonged to one. So there were a lot of fights between the two parties that at some point they actually go to an agreement and say that, you know what, take this side and I will take this side, or go this side and I will go this side. And so that is where I was like, you know what, we're talking about acceleration. We're talking about changing lives, impacting lives, pursuing our purpose, okay? We're talking about being global speakers. We're talking about creating global businesses and creating worthwhile marriages and worthwhile relationships. But in order for us to actually have the acceleration and the speed that we actually need, there are certain weights that we must lose. And some of those weights are people. Okay? Some of those weights are things that we have regarded as so important in our lives. But we must be able to lose them, because I can give you all the formulas of being the greatest speaker in the world. I can give you the formulas of creating the best brand in the world. But for as long as something is holding you back, you will have the formulas and you will sit on the formulas. You will have a good phone and you will not record any video. You will have very good, important information to relay to people, and you will hold back because you lack the confidence, because some of the people that we have in our lives are zapping and sucking the confidence and life out of us. So we can make all sorts of prayers. We can wake up as early as we want. We can do everything that we want. But for as long as the things that are holding us back still have the power over us, we are not moving an inch. We are in a rat race. You go from corner to corner, and then you only to come back and be disappointed that, hey, I was here. But this is familiar. It's like a deja vu. You wake up to living the same day every day. I think I got to a place and got tired. I got to a place and said that, you know what, I think there must be something that I can be able to do about this situation for me to be able to actually move ahead. I don't think I want to be in the same tears. I don't think I want to be in the same regret. I don't think I want to have the same headaches. Do you know that you can know? Let's go back into the normal life. You can know what's causing you headache, and you fail to actually address what's causing you the headache. But this is what happens. You treat the symptom. You get the medicine. You go and tell the doctor about the headache. You go, as in, you complain, you mumble about the headache, but you're actually not treating. They're telling you, oh, eat healthy. The doctor is not going to eat the carrots for you. They're not going to eat the veggies for you. They're not going, but they tell you to eat well, and then you go and eat junk. They tell you to sleep enough hours, 8 hours, and you're like, doctor, you're joking. I have to watch movies until 3 a.m. in the night, and then I have to wake up in the morning and drop the kids to school at around 6. And then you have 2 hours of sleep or 3 hours of sleep, but you're like, yeah, I've been doing this for the past 10 years. Wait, age is catching up on you. How you performed at 20, is that how you're performing in 30s? Or how you performed in your teen years? Is that how you're performing now? No. That means there is a level of growth that we must get at, and there are certain decisions, crucial decisions that we must be able to actually make. And there is a mantra that I've shared so many times with us, and I say that we are not sinking. If you come into this community, we are not sinking not at any one moment. We are not surviving. We are choosing to thrive for as long as we seek to be in this community. But again, I want us to look at level 3, which is thriving. When you look at level 3, which is thriving, we have so many interpretations, and I want to first dive into the interpretation of what thriving really looks like. And for me, thriving is living life in God's way, okay? Living life God's way is different from what the world or the normal way. The normal way is like, the only way up is up. It's up or up. The King's way, the God's way that he created us is like, if you want to go up, you go down. You humble yourself, and then he uplifts you. So you realize that between culture, between the normal norms of the world and what God envisions for us, or how he created us and how we are supposed to be, are two different things. The world expects that in order for you to get, you must get. And while the way God created for us, that is why we will sometimes fight with a lot of lack of satisfaction, because we are not doing things God's way. And yet God created us, and he has the manual for how we function. So if he says that in order for you to get, you must give. Have we read something like that? That we must give. You need satisfaction, you need fulfillment. Your fulfillment, God wrapped it in contribution. That you must contribute in order to be fulfilled and to be satisfied. For as long as you're like, me, they should give me, they should feed me, they should love me, there is no fulfillment for you, right? So that means if we ever choose and say that for sure, it's not just a mantra, but I am choosing to thrive, there are certain things that we must do, and we must be able to do them God's way, not our way. I know that we all subscribe to different religious affiliations and denominations, but that is very okay, because we all believe in God, right? And we all want to be the best version that God ever created. So that means we must be able to live according to the Creator and what he wants for us, okay? So when he says that whoever wants to gain, whoever wants to lose, to gain himself should be able to lose himself. Have you ever read something about that? Have you? So some of us, we are in this mentorship so that we can lay our lives down for the impact of others. So we are losing ourselves. Otherwise, where would you have been right now? Wouldn't you have places to go? You'd have had nice places to go to, my friend. There are all sorts of nice things to actually do there. Why are we seemingly losing time here? Learning or building or changing our mindsets. Why? It's because we are losing our lives for the impact and the transformation of others. But for as long as we have done that, there are certain things that we must be able to be willing to actually lose in our lives, and that is where I want us to be able to actually run very straight to, okay? We lose to gain, and sometimes I will say this, that in order for you to gain whatever you need to gain, sometimes we pray. I think I talked about some time ago, I talked about the open doors, how we pray for open doors, and we don't know that when we pray for open doors, there are certain things that God is taking out. Instead, we are thinking open doors are just going to bring in good things. And I was like, I hate to disappoint you. Sometimes God is taking away something. Ajawo mputu, ajawo butawulira, ajawo some people that are standing in the way. So sometimes how God makes addition in our lives, he does the subtraction. Because sometimes we think he's just going to multiply us. Please multiply me. Please make an addition. Please. And sometimes what he thinks is right for you is for him to be able to subtract so that he can be able to add. that he takes away so that he can be able to give. I know this is not a sweet message. Or this is not a sweet personal growth kind of message. But he's going to have to take away. And let me tell you, God never takes away what you need. God takes away what you want or what you thought you were leaning on, but not what you need. Some of us are leaning on human beings. We are leaning on people. And he's saying you cannot function for as long as you're leaning on that person, because that person is unpredictable. That person is not faithful. That person does not have your back. That person is lying, and so you think you are leaning on them, but for as long as they know that now wemazeyo, that is when they are going to take away their support. And all of a sudden, you are crumbling and you're back to zero. And you're saying, how do I pick my pieces again? So sometimes before you even lean and take all your weight and put all your weight, God is saying, allow me, it's going to be painful, but I'm going to take this person away so that you can learn to be strong on your own in order to be able to strengthen others. Because for as long as you're leaning on someone that is unreliable, have you ever seen a weak person pulling another person out of a pit? What happens? So while you have disguised crutches, or people, and by the way, when I mention people, these could be spouses, this could be work relationships. Have you ever leaned on someone that you were working with and you thought that this person has my back? And by the way, sometimes for us employers, you can lean on an employee. Like someone seems so predictable and reliable, and you lean on them, and you're like, if this person ever goes away, I don't know what I am going to do. And sometimes, by the way, because God sees farther than we see with our human eyes, he's like, you know what? I know that it's going to be painful, but for you to be strong, I must be able to take away this person, because if I don't take away this person, 2 years from now, this business is going to crumble. Because you're not depending on the right person. Has someone ever been reliable? And they're very reliable. Like they show up every day, but in their heads they are making the math. They're like, you know what? You get it? And then I will pull the rug under their feet. And you've given the keys to the kingdom. You've given them all the authority. You have, like, literally, because when someone is good to us, there is a way we open up all the corners of our lives. And all of a sudden, you remember Delilah? And what she did? As in, they bring, and let me tell you, they bring someone who is beautiful. They didn't bring someone who is ugly. They bring someone who is beautiful. And then, they're like, this guy, there is only one guy. We have failed to defeat this guy. Just go in and be able to twist and find out what the source of his strength is. And so she goes. And she's like, you know what, if you really love me, you tell me. It's like, if you use these kinds of ropes, if you use this kind, and let me tell you, Samson never had it in his mind that why is it that everything he mentioned was actually readily available? Because when he mentioned of the ropes were there. Whatever he mentioned, that no, now if you do this and this, you will have, taken away my power. And all of a sudden, they tie him with the ropes, and the Philistines come, and when they shout, when she shouts, oh, they are here, he breaks them. And he can't even, let me tell you, emotions are so bad. Yeah. And affection, not love, but affection can be very misleading. Until, it's like, now you don't even love me. But if you really loved me, you'd have told me what the truth is. What did Samson say at last? That if you cut off my hair, I have never cut off my hair. Ever since birth, I have never cut off my hair. But if you cut off my hair, as in for him, he had opened up all the keys to the kingdom and given them to this person. And yet this person had her own calculations. She was being used, and she was also being a user and a manipulator, because it's a choice that someone makes. Do you know there are people that have been employed to come and bring you down, but because they have their own fear of God, they come to you and they're like, you know what, I'm not going to do what I've been paid to do, but I'm going to actually kulabla this person. So that means any type of betrayal is a choice that someone makes. They were not forced into it. No one did anything, but they just chose and said, you know what, we are going to disappoint this person and we are going to manipulate this person. So I don't know what this season is for you or what kind of subtraction must happen in your life in this season. But when God takes one thing away, he brings another. And just like I said, could be work relationships, could be a love relationship, could be a family, by our family relationship. I think we've relied on our families, can be a sibling. You rely on someone, no mwe malirako, and that person is just not there. They were not truly there. Business partnerships. I think we've seen businesses come down so many times. And I think so many times I've told you, be very selective, because sometimes maybe you cannot choose who your coach is, but you can choose who your mentor is. Because they play a very pivotal role, a very crucial role in how far you can run in that specific season where you have engaged them. Okay? So I just need us to go through the things that we must be able to be very careful about. Okay? The things that we must be able to be very careful about. And some of the things that I wrote down, one of them are expectations. Expectations. I need us to be very careful about our expectations, because how our expectations work is when you expect something from someone, you're able to give them the full, you're able to open up to them. And sometimes you're opening up to them, but you're not getting exactly the support that you actually needed, or you're not getting the kind of guidance that you needed, or the kind of help that you actually needed. Now, when the expectations are misaligned, expectations can be misaligned. There is having realistic expectations and there is having unrealistic expectations. Realistic expectations is what you can offer yourself. Unrealistic expectations is what is out of your control. And so many of us have had, like so many times, unrealistic expectations. And then we have been hurt because we cannot give that to ourselves. I wanted us to go through a certain mantra. I remember a mantra that I put down for us to actually go through. I know that it's something that is, I need to be able to find it somewhere, but I know that it's a season for some of us to actually be very, very careful. Some of the things that we need to lose, and I gave this a name, Lot. When we talked about that story about Abraham and Lot, I just gave it a name, Lot, okay? And I said that Lot represents some of the people that we have affection for. Number one, I need you to be able to put it down, that you have affection for. But number two, you are not responsible for. Number three, that you need to make adjustments with. I need us to be very careful about those three statements, because they are going to be the baseline for everything. Number one, Lot represents someone you have affection for. Number two, but you are not responsible for, because you cannot be responsible for another person. You cannot be responsible for their actions. You cannot be responsible for what they do, how they think, how they behave, what they do in your life. So you're not responsible for them. But number three, that you need to make adjustments with. Now, the adjustments that we need to make is number one, that we talked about the expectations. That you need to be able to adjust your expectations, that what you expected of this person, they have continuously displayed that they are not going to be able to do. For example, they're not going to be faithful. Whether with money, whether with your heart, whether with anything, they're not going to be faithful. So now you need to make adjustments with them. But how many of us have failed to make adjustments with people after we know we are not responsible for them? Do you know why so many of us cry? So many of us wail, so many of us lose ourselves? is because, number one, we have affection for those people. Remember, I've not used love. So now this is not just tied to a relationship. We are going to work with people. We are going to get into communities. And some of us are going to elevate even in partnerships. We are going to create businesses with people. Now, the moment you are misaligned in the first step, and the first step being the affection that you have for them, by the time you make a business with someone, it's because you trust them. Right? Not necessarily love. It's because you trust them. So you have an affection towards them. An affection is an emotion of comfort. So you have an emotion of comfort towards them because of certain things that they have done. Remember, when people are getting into our lives, they're not going to misbehave the first time they come into our lives. When people come into our lives, they buy in with trust. And sometimes it can be manipulative, but sometimes it can even be right. Do you know there are people that have started relationships on a good slate, partnerships on a good slate, work relationship on a good slate. And then, as you go along, because they have created the comfort and now you have affection towards them, you feel like you are responsible for their actions. And yet you're not responsible. They are human beings, they are adults, and they can choose to do anything. So when they choose to play around with the money of your partnership, it's not because you are too loving, you get it? Because loving has no problem. It's because they decided to actually make that decision. Relational intelligence is something that is playing on so many people's minds and has spoiled so many relationships. And for as long as we are lagging behind in the discernment and the telling of what, do you know that you can start with someone and then you start seeing them, they've not done anything bad, but you feel like your spirit is reading something different. Has it ever happened to you? They've not done anything bad, but you feel like there is an unsettling feeling, and like something is just warning you to be careful. And sometimes because the affection already exists, you're not careful enough. You're like, you know what? We've moved with them for 5 years. We've worked with them for 5 years. They've done me kindness in the past. And sometimes we base our genuineness and our trust because of the past kindness, not knowing that there is another storm that is actually coming. And sometimes our spirits will sense that there is a storm coming. Sometimes before your business collapses, you will sense that there's something that is not happening. Sometimes before that friendship is destroyed by jealous, you will sense it that, by the way, there's something I just don't understand. And sometimes it will be because of the time that someone cuts away from you. It will be because of how they look at you. It will be because of what they speak behind your back. Sometimes it will be because, and you're just not careful enough. You're like, you know what, I know this person. How many of us think we know people more than they even know themselves? I think we have fallen into that trap, so many of us. But if we are going to operate businesses, if we are going to elevate to global communities, if we are going to be global speakers, we are not going to work with animals, we are going to work with humans. Do you know that your client can betray you? And a client who betrays you is one who will create genuineness and faithfulness and presence and be available until you buy into their trust. Some of you have been in ministries before where you've been disappointed by someone. You built a ministry together and all of a sudden this person shows you, or you built a business together and all of a sudden this person shows you, you're not as important. I can actually run this business alone. I have seen people that have started factories, that have started businesses, that have started ministries, that have started like so many ventures together. And while you're both not so well, you're pulling in the resources, you're working so hard, and all of a sudden, there are people that have had to tell that, you know what, count it a loss. It's very hard advice to give. And I'm like, you know what? There is no way you are going to redeem. Number one, you cannot redeem the energy that you put into this. Number two, you cannot redeem the time that you have put into this. The emotional investment that you have put into this. How do you tell someone, count it a loss, a marriage that has happened for the past 20 years? Do you see how hard it is as people transformers, as people helpers? If you're ever going to give anyone advice, that is why I usually say, detach from the person you're helping. Because the moment you become emotionally entangled with the person that you're helping, you have become two emotional people that are two emotional wrecks that cannot help each other. Because while she's wiping the left eye, you're wiping the right. And sometimes have you ever become speechless when you're helping someone and you're like, how could they? How could they do this to you? Like, you step into their feet and feel their pain. And the only reason we can help people is because we step into their feet. But again, we must be sober enough to immediately step out of their feet and look at this situation in different dimensions so we can be able to help and pull them out. Otherwise, have you ever helped someone through a situation that you lost control over? There are people that have helped people in their marriages, and yet their marriages are a storm and a wreck. And there are people that have been in relationships that have not worked, but they're helping others make their relationships work. But I know. And while you're telling them, now you should do A, B, C, and D, this is what your mind is telling you, but how stupid of you. How foolish of you. Why couldn't you take your own medicine? Why couldn't you do these things yourself? You know, when you look at them now, according to this and according to this, this is a red flag. And you're like, naegwe, dark red ngaya kuitako. You know, that person is an emotional vampire. And then you remember the 5 emotional vampires that you gave 10 years of your time. And you're like, how stupid. I think sometimes as people help us, by the way, there is a way we get back into our own rooms and we look at ourselves, and you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, like, what's wrong with me? And let me tell you, even in that moment where you're helping thousands of people, that you cannot even master any form of energy to help yourself. And guess what? And the people come back with testimonies. They're like, do you remember the other thing you told me? You're like a prophet. You know, you spoke exactly what was happening. You know, when against the went, do you know that we are fine now? Everything is lovey-dovey. And guess what? You're going back to eat popcorn and watch TV. And sometimes the TV watches you while you are crying. As a people helper, just like I said, expectations are not just people helpers. Each one of us. We must be able to understand the things that we have affection for, the people that we have affection for, whether it's a sibling. Do you know that there are siblings that have ruined people multiple times? Or even children. Your child comes, asks for I know so many parents that have spoiled children, and those children have sold multiple cars in the family without even the knowledge of their fathers. I don't know whether you've heard some of these stories. Someone takes a car, sells it, and then they come. And because you're a father, you forgive. And another day, he pretends like thieves took it. Kumbe, he actually sold it. But because you have so much affection, but remember, you are a parent, and we give birth to normal functioning human beings, and you cannot be responsible for what they do, when they do it and how they do it. The best you can do for your children is actually pray for them, that God will help them make better decisions. But sometimes we must make adjustments with those children. That is where the hard paper that comes in. That now I have to be able to take away the card that I gave you, the ATM card, because you lack self-control. Otherwise, you're going to do shopping of, let me say, 20 millions in 1 hour. And I'm saying I need to make adjustments. I will give you a card that I will give you your monthly allowance, whether it's of 1 million, and so do with 1 million whatever you please, but I'm not giving you my endless card. Do you understand the adjustments? That now you're trying to put boundaries. that now you're trying to engage your discernment, that now you're trying to be thoughtful and you're trying to save the long-term future. And this is what happened. You're actually saving yourself from stress. Right? There are some husbands who have had to actually make adjustments. They're like, you know what, oli mchala wange nkwagala nnyo naye nkimanyi bwekituuka ku ky'essente otabuka oba oli awo oteeka omumwa mu nnyindo nze tampa zimala nze lwe baakuwa ezimala wagenda kukola bitaliiyo. And I'm not saying this is the same for all ladies. Do you know that there are ladies that are super planners when it comes to money? That they're even better planners than the ones that are earning the money. There are some husbands who will say point blank, they're like, you know what, the day I control my money, I know that we are going to lose it all. So I work and I let my wife control the money. There are people that we have trusted with relationships. Have you seen husbands that complain that, you know what, my wife, when we go to a party, making sure anti andi wano kumpi, kubanga, abagenda kuonoona bingi. Kwa bwagenda kuono nga yogera olugambo. Bwagenda kuola gundi wamulabye, then wagenda, ne wakoma ddyo mulaba. Nangesira. Azino ogenda okulaba family agitabudde, tayawula family ye na family y'oli. Eri agenza ayogeddeyo ebirala, enaza ayogeddeyo ebirala. Ogenda okulaba, mwe muva mu party, odda mu meeting. And all of a sudden, tokomyawo wano mukazi wo. You've seen people, things happening to people. Why? You have affection for her, but you're not responsible for her actions. She is an adult. She can make her own choices and decisions. That omumwa gumulemi okufuga. Omumwa ogusirika obusirisi gumulemi okufuga okugenda n'agamba kanonde ka chai, nonde ka dessert, nonde emmere. Nene bwatuuka ku mmeeza y'emmere ajja kwogerayo ebigambo 100. And let me tell you, some people can be experts. Agenda ku mmeeza y'emmere, like akama naye samulabyeko ng'ayogera n'omuntu yenna. Naye nga we yabeeredde ku mmeeza ng'alonda ka keeki. Ebigambo yabiyisiza side eno. Mwali mulabyeko people who are experts at speaking, double crossing. They don't speak directly, lest people see them ti yabadde ayogera ne gundi. Aba alondawo kalondawo n'ono amuli wano gundi wamulabye. N'akayisaawo. N'agamba nze bannanga bantu bansobera. Naye lindo omulabye. Negwayogera naye tamutunuddeeko. Hey, people have expertise. Kati gwe woba olowooza you're in control. You're not in control. Abantu bakusukkako dda. Kyogedde kiyiseewo. And now you have to be able to pick up their pieces. But now when you know that I need to make adjustments is when you say, there are certain places I will never go to with so-and-so. You edit them, never cover, gundi tachantwala kupate, gundi tachantwala kupate. Sometimes the wetaga na kubajjukiza nti bwe nakutwala kupate gundi wagulawo tsunami, ne tornado, ne third world war. So gwe kyesigaliza n'ogamba omanyi? Agamba nti tomula waliwo abatabalaga nti bagenda ne ku party eyo. Agamba nayitiddewo buyitizi kale bangambye nti omanyi yitirawo ddakiika 2 ne mpitirawo buyitizi naye it was not my intention to go there. Kumbe bambi he is trying to make adjustments. So sometimes for us to make adjustments we don't need permission from the people from whom we are making adjustments. We don't need that permission. And it's not a must that you must explain yourself too much. Do you know that you could be making adjustments from your boss? And so but here, I've been working a lot, now I'm editing my working hours, so I'm just going to be working for 2 hours maximum because that is what I'm paid for. Bobo Manyinti, it's 2 hours that you're paid for. Can you work for 2 hours quietly without telling anyone? Do you get what I'm telling you? That if you're trying to edit or to make adjustments in whatever relationship that you're making adjustment, it's like, have you ever seen people who are living in marriages or relationships and then they have to give notices? N'akiteeka ku status n'akinyumizaako gundi n'amala n'akola obugalo nze essaawa yonna ŋŋenda nze era. Hey, do you know that a person who is doing that aba talina gy'agenda? This is what they are doing. They are displaying their buttons to be pressed and manipulated and be lied to again. Why? Because when you sit down and you're like, you know what? I have affection for you. Okay? And we've had good times together. But I cannot be responsible for you. In as much as I love you, I cannot be responsible for your actions. You have made your own choices as far as actions are concerned. So now, it is my time to make adjustments. My adjustments could be to keep quiet. Maybe I've been speaking unnecessarily. Wanji? I've been muttering everything. So now, try to read into my emotions. And I'm not here for the reading because I'm not seeking permission. So I'm just going to edit, adjust what I say when I say it. What do you want to know? And sometimes you even adjust your attitude. No one is going to read it from your attitude to why you're annoyed or what. Because even when they know you're annoyed, what are they going to do about it? If they've already been misbehaving. Now, even if you have an attitude, you're actually nagging them. You're actually building more resentment for yourself. So the best thing is you adjust more. Kasiri say. Yeah. You make your own, and sometimes, let me tell you, this is what we do. We make adjustments, but the times that you make adjustments are not the times where you implement adjustments, because we make adjustments in pain. So, don't announce your adjustments because you are not ready to make the adjustments. Your head is telling you you're ready to make the adjustments, but your body is not willing to make the adjustments. So can you just keep quiet and just look on? And just because every action after that is going to confirm whether you should make the adjustments or not. Are we together? So when they do one more act, you're like, I was right in my decision. When they do another dubious act, you're like, yes, I thought right. When they do another, and then you're like, now this is the nail, the last nail that I needed. This is the one that is breaking the camel's back. Because the camel, how many things does the camel lift? Have you seen the camels? Lifting all sorts of luggages on very small water in the deserts. When they say that this is what broke the camel's back, just know that thing had an impact, and not just a short-term impact. That impact siyalero. That is when someone comes and says, Bambi, kakati omanyi kale musasire, and you're like, you know what? Nsasire okumala emyaka 10. And I don't think I am the Jesus of this generation. I'm not going to go to any cross and get crucified because I want to change another person. I do not have the power to change another human being. If they want to change, I'll give them the time to change on their own. But I am making my own adjustments. Does it make sense? Because remember, most of the headaches that we get are from human beings. So I need you to ask yourself, where do you need to make those adjustments? Where do you need to make those adjustments? I need you to ask yourself a very intentional question. Some of us need to make adjustments from our jobs. Yeah. Some of us need to make adjustments from our families. Some of us need to make adjustments. There are people that have, there is a lady that I met some time back. We had a ladies' coffee chat. I don't know who was there. But yes, a ladies' coffee chat. There is a lady who told us she has never seen her mother, or she had never made any deliberate move to meet her mother in the past 10 and more years. It's like because her mother was the source of the strongest turmoil and the worst pain that she has ever received. That pain span for all her life. When she gave birth to her child, she promised herself that I am never going to put myself back in my mother's vicinity because she has killed my self-esteem. She has called me all sorts of names, how I am ugly, how I am the worst person to ever been given birth to. By the time a mother mentions those things about their own child, to the extent that she mentioned when she conceived with that child, She stays on she was in Nairobi, and they separated with the boyfriend. She came back to Kampala and stayed on the streets for more than 6 months with her baby. But her mother's home was there, and her mother was eating every day, and she had workers that she was feeding every day. And she was like, you know what? I would rather die on a street than go to my mother's house. Do you see how some adjustments are very costly and very hard to make? But she was like, I cannot put myself in the same environment that killed me, that shattered me, that made me lose myself bits by bits until I was no more. I cannot put myself back in that environment. Because in as much as I am supposed to have affection for my mother, because every child is supposed to have affection for their mother, number two, I am not responsible for their actions. She's an adult, and sometimes I will not dig to understand, because some parents want to be understood. Nti bambi mama ange nsonga lwaki yalina obusungu bungi lwakuba taata wange yamuleka. Tewali ayagala kusoma bibyo. The reason as to why that man was treating me like this is because he suffered in his own life. If you suffered, must you make other people suffer in order to make a point that you suffered? But if you suffered, the biggest thing that you can make is like, I do not want to create the same environment that was created for me. I am going to create a different environment where people can thrive. I think we can decide better. She stayed on the streets for more than 6 months. And the girl, if you remember her, she's a painter. And she does tiles. She's a very beautiful girl and a young girl. But she said, it would rain and we'll be on the streets. And I knew that my mother was somewhere in heavy blankets. But I would not risk to even enter that house because it was very toxic. And I felt like if I even entered the doorpost of that house, I was just going to cry myself to death. By the time someone says that, that means they've gotten to a place where enough is enough. They've gotten to a place where no one can tell them what to do and what not to do. Where no one can decide for them. Where they have actually had it. Okay? So I need us to look at our expectations. It's so crucial for us to look at our expectations. And number two, our investment. When we invest in people, we invest time, we invest our talent, who we are. We invest so much in people. We invest our treasures, our callings. But remember, those things have been given to us by God, right? The time, the talents, the treasure, the who we are, our full package. So now we must be very careful where we actually invest. Because when we invest, there is always returns on. Now, even bad investment has returns on. Not just the good investment. Even bad investment has bad returns on. Okay? So, I need you to have the discernment to know that before I invest, I must be able to be very calculative. Have you seen people who calculate risk before investing? Right? You've seen people calculate risk before investing. They're like, okay, how much am I willing to lose? Even in business, you calculate risk. You're like, you know what? I either go all in or I go half-half. If I go all in, what am I risking? It's possible that I might lose all my money. But sometimes, the higher the risk, the more the gains. So you're like, you know what? If I need to gain still, I can't keep away from investment. And you're like, okay, I am going to invest. But I will have the discernment to know. Like people who invest in stocks, they have the discernment to know when to pull out. And they're like, you know what? This market is crashing. As the market is crashing, people are pulling out their investment. As the market is rising, people are putting back their investment. Now, some of us, we gamble with life. We see investment curve coming down like at a very steady speed. Let me tell you. So when some people choose to betray, they go wholesale. Like it is coming down. Aren't you the coach that is coaching rich women how to date? Eh? They see investments, the profit margin is dropping at a very high speed. But guess what? As human beings, this is how we have been conditioned to do. That while the risk is too high, we feel the need to invest more. While someone stops loving you, that is when you love them the more. Right? Isn't it ironical? While someone stops caring, that is when you care the more. While someone stops calling you, that is when you call them every minute of the day. Aren't you? Foolish Galatians. Who bewitched us? While someone doesn't have time, that is when you would rather lose your job, you would rather lose everything else, but have time for that person. That even when they call you and you are at your job and you know you must not leave your station, you'll be like, and then you will run. But well knowing that that investment is down, it is collapsing. There's a lady, I think, actually it was Tim who was coaching her. She came to her, but she came to him, and she was like, you know what? I'm losing my marriage. And my husband already has another woman. And this woman, like, is an immediate neighbor. Immediate neighbor. So this lady was working, like, far away from home. So this woman is an immediate neighbor. And the husband was spending more time the other side, to the extent, let me tell you, when some things take your attention, they take it full swing. To the extent he would not call on the wife. The wife was with the children, educating the children, taking them to school, breaking with work. And guess what? The man was actually jobless. So he got a contract of taking care of a concubine. Ate mama, you know, would they won't. So this is what happens. This lady comes and is like, you know, when you go for coaching, I usually tell you, the people help us, you probe and ask people, because sometimes we're not supposed to advise, we are supposed to facilitate their decision making. So for her, she had two options. She was like, you know when you're in a panic mode, you're not thinking right. So this is what she was saying. You know what? There is no way I can leave my marriage. I would rather leave the job so that I can come home. When he sees me home, he's going to stop going to the other person's place. And so we can actually build a better marriage. So wrong, so wrong, so wrong. Because she was about to abandon the only thing that was giving her livelihood. The only thing that could help her survive, in order to invest all her eggs in one basket that was already crashing. And he actually warned her against it. She was like, now, actually he told me that, you know what, now I cannot be just a normal life coach. Just to tell her that, you know what, since it's your decision, it's okay. You go ahead and try it. So if it doesn't work, then you can. Because he was like, when I tell her that I will be burying her children and I will be burying this woman, she was like, you're making the wrong decision. You cannot lose a job to fight for a man. A man that wants to be lost will forever be lost, even if you lose everything in the world. If he wanted you enough, he would have been patient. He would have traveled with buses to come and see you. He would have invested in airtime to call you. He would have invested in looking for a job. He would have invested, as in, you can't be the one that is sinking and you are the one that is misbehaving. What kind of foolery is that? You are jobless and you're cheating. Wanji? You don't have money and you're cheating. As in, you cannot even have the proper understanding of saying that I'm in a ditch and I need to take myself out of a ditch. All the ounce, the energy that you have is to unzip and put it somewhere. That is the wisdom that you have. The revelation that you have. Like, seriously. So how do you save such a person? Came back home to a house that was not paid for. The other Nachayo Mbekede was paying for her own kazigo. So maybe whatever she was getting was service. You're all adults. You understand the service. The change of oil. Sure. So, and let me tell you, there is no better or greater accident than a man who is counting on others too. Even a woman, by the way. Because this world does not segregate. We are in the same boat in this generation. So she came back home, and then after 1 month, 2 months, she has prayed all her prayers, and yet we told her, pray while you are working. Pray while you are investing. Pray while you are buying land. Pray while you're taking your children to a cheaper school so that you can be able to afford school fees for a longer time. Do you see that? Pray while you are strategizing. How can I get more money? How can I work? What do I do? When instead of the evening time of saying that, you know what, now I am counting, you have no one to count on. The one that impregnated you and the father of your children apparently is not responsible enough to even think about the children. All she's thinking about is who else. So she left. Sat. The landlord started demanding money. She started getting stressed. The man did not abandon the other woman, not even for a single day. Not even a single. And guess what? The most amazing thing. You all know I'm not the segregator of religions. These people were worlds apart. The man, born again. The concubine, Muslim. Yeah. I'm saying this because, and I'm a Christian. At the risk of being misunderstood, these things are happening. A born again, spirit-filled, chasing demons, praying in tongues. Let me tell you, emizimu tejitia mafuta. They don't fear anything. For as long as you're just professing God on your mouth and He's not in your heart, you're actually not telling us anything. So do you see when I tell you that? The things that we must lose, we have affection for them. Because by the time you're losing something, it's because you liked it. You held dear to it. We have affection for them, but we are not in control of their decisions. We are not responsible for them. So that means we must be able to make adjustments. How far do we engage with these people? How far do we want to lose our lives? How far do we want to lose our sanity? How far are we willing to lose our investment? Because that was number 2, okay? Investment. That is very, very crucial. We invest. Let me tell you. The reason as to why so many people are crying is because of the lost time. Because of the lost energy. You cannot redeem your years. You cannot redeem. You're like, you know what? Everything I have known and everything I have done, I have known with this person. And let me tell you, sometimes they have a way of professing what they are not doing. So they are saying something different and they are doing something different. Whether it's a sibling, a workmate, a spouse, or what, they are saying something because they want you to keep around. And let me tell you, because you've been there punching bag for so long, because they want the emotional support of, I can't stay without you, I love you, but love me the way I am. I don't want to edit myself. I still want to do whatever I have been doing that is offending you, but love me for who I am. Someone is stealing money from your business, and they're like, is that something that you're willing to do? I don't think we are willing to do. But do you know that so many times we actually do that? We give it so much time. And the third thing, the emotions. Emotions. We have to make adjustments with our emotions. Emotions are so complicated. Sometimes they are wailing, they are up and down, and yet you can't let the emotions kill you. Because most of the times what actually brings the tears, what brings the regrets, are the emotions, the connectivity that we have to those things, to those people. But remember, we must lose them. When I started, I said that our acceleration is inhibited, our acceleration is hindered. How far you run in business, how far you run in your calling, how far you run in the money that you make, how far you run, there are certain things that are going to stand in your way, or there are certain things that are going to hold you back that you need to lose. When the rocket gets into the sky, there are so many things that have to fall off it. Because then it has to remain very light in order to be able to traverse the space. That while it's going up, it needs a lot of fuel, it's holding on to so many things because it must help it to go up. Now, some of us have reached where we must be able to release the weight, but we are not releasing the weight. And yet we are praying at the same time. We are fasting. Do you see how we waste our fasting? Do you see how we waste our praying? So now, this is your reminder from God that there are certain decisions that need to be made. Whether in your business, in your personal life, in your marriage, in your relationship, this is a reminder. Take me as a reminder that God is saying that there are certain adjustments that must be made. That your emotions can only be ruled over by you. You cannot let emotions rule you over. How many of us have cried because of emotions? I think so many of us. So many of us. So now, you would rather cry, but not cry over the same thing tomorrow, and cry over the same thing next year, and cry over the next thing after 5 years, and cry over the next thing after 10 years. When will you make progress? There's somewhere in the Bible where it says that because of the fatness, that the yoke was broken off them. Have you ever read that? Anyone? So I actually don't have any Bible readers here. That because they were fattened, that is your homework. You go and read it. That the yoke broke. You know, when you get fat with your purpose, when you love yourself so much, no savuala, that whatever was holding you can no longer hold you. Let me tell you, it's so sweet to chase your purpose and mind your business and let the people that you were chasing after now start chasing after you. And you're like, hey, kati ozuku say. Kati I am that important. All of a sudden. Okay? But that comes from you loving yourself enough to be full of yourself. The Swahili calls it anajiringa. Like you feel yourself. Some of us are not feeling ourselves. That is why everyone is looking at us and like whoever it may concern. But the moment you start feeling yourself, everyone is like, kachika abaza. Ngalabika kyali akiwoma okimanyi osobola okulya mukene n'oswankula ng'awoomerwa omuntu ne yeebuuza n'agamba naye mbadde mmanyi alya nnyama. The thing is, as in something small, n'oyambala omuvumba gwo n'onyuma n'oyambala akakondo ko n'obigula. And someone is like, yay! It doesn't take a lot to turn your life around. It doesn't take a lot to make adjustments. It just takes your mindset, your mentality to love yourself a little more than you loved yourself yesterday. Bw'obanga obadde olina gw'olimbalimba nti omwagala nga tomwagala olwaleero lwe lunaku, this is your sign. Leave them alone. Chuck them today. It will hurt them, but they will get over it. Okay, bye-bye.